Hello students, welcome back. Myself Pushpendra Singh, and we are going to start with our geography classes. Okay, so continuing to our last classes, we are basically at the ninth standard geography. So these classes are basically meant for those students who are preparing for the civil services examination as well as other government competitive examinations, because you require to answer the few questions related to the current affairs as well as the few questions related to your the basic knowledge of your general studies. Okay, so here basically you can refer our channel on the YouTube. You can subscribe for your NCRT based classes. Okay, there you will get the classes based on the NCRT. So we are covering these books basically on the YouTube. Okay, so you can subscribe our channel and you can supplement your preparation with the help of these classes. Okay, so let's begin with the lecture. Okay, so first is basically the distribution of rainfall. So we have started the the monsoon. That was a topic, okay, in our last class, and we have seen, right, the basically the southwestern monsoon. We have seen that there are two branches of the southwestern monsoon. One is the Bay of Bengal branch, and the second is Arabian Sea branch. Okay, now after covering the branches, Bay of Bengal branch and the Arabian Sea branch, we have basically have significantly moved over their characteristic position, their characteristic, as well as we have seen how these two branches are affecting the rainfallic regime in India. Right, now let's understand about the distribution of the rainfall with the help of these two branches. Okay, so here the first is basically you must understand that annually the part of the Western Ghats and the northeastern India receives over 400 centimeters of the rainfall. So what are these parts? These parts are basically the the rain bearing part of the western coast. So that means they are Western Ghats. So western side of Western Ghats, which are the rain bearing side of the southwestern monsoon. So they are basically falling in the way of the southwestern monsoonal winds, that is the rain bearing winds. Okay, so due to the orographic effect, what will happen, the orographic rainfall occurs on the western side of Western Ghats, and the same phenomena occurred in the northeastern India, where you will have the effect of the orography, right, because of the mountains come in the path of the rain bearing winds, and which causes the rainfall specifically in the northeastern India also. So both of these regions receive 400 centimeters of the rainfall. However, if you see in the western Rajasthan, you will have less than 60 centimeters of the rainfall. Okay, and adjoining part of Gujarat, Haryana, and the Punjab, right? Obviously it is because of the rain bearing winds do not have enough moisture. Okay, and since they do not have the enough moisture, what will happen, they are basically causing the less rainfall, and moreover there is no orographic effect over there, right? So rain bearing wind just directly passes off, and whatever the the Arabian Sea branch or the Bay of Bengal branch, they exhausted their moisture by the time they reaches to the Western Ghats and adjoining part of Gujarat and Haryana. All right, and the rainfall is equally low in the interior of the Deccan Plateau and east of Shayadris. Okay, so these are the places where it is basically the rain shadow region. The rain shadow region is that region which is falling just opposite to the rain, the rain bearing side of the monsoon. So those region, for example, the eastern part of Western Ghats are basically the rain shadow region. Okay, so the rainfall are generally low, specifically in the interior part of Deccan as well as the eastern part of Shayadri. It is because of this region is basically the rain shadow region. Okay, a third area of the low precipitation is around Leh in Jammu and Kashmir. The Leh region is basically a cold desert, right? There is very low amount of precipitation, specifically in the Leh and Ladakh region. Okay, and rest of the country basically receives somewhat moderate rainfall. Okay, and snowfall is restricted to the Himalayan region, specifically in the Uttarakhand, Himachal, right, and the Jammu and Kashmir region. Okay, now due to this monsoon, okay, you have different variability of the rainfall. So this rainfall is basically having the variability in terms of the spatial, in terms of your temporal variability. So spatial means with the space, okay, with the distance you will have the variability in the rainfall, and with the temporal, with the time. So the most of the monsoonal rainfall basically occurred in the 4 months of the monsoonal regime from the month of June to September. Okay, and remaining period, 85% of the rainfall, and only the Coromandel coast in the Tamil Nadu and adjoining Andhra Pradesh receives the rainfall from the northeastern monsoonal winds. Okay, now the variability of this winds basically occurred. They are very high, right? So these variabilities are very high, specifically, those regions which are traditionally having the less precipitation, for example, in the Rajasthan, in the Gujarat, and the leeward side of Western Ghats. So there again, these leeward side are basically the rain shadow region of, the southwestern monsoonal winds. Okay, it is basically falling on the eastern side of Western Ghats, Okay, now due to the areas of this high rainfall are liable to be affected by the floods. Obviously, the higher is the rainfall, right, there is obviously the changes in the with the temporal, with the with the distance. So what will happen, they are also liable to be affected by the floods. Okay, the areas which are traditionally are receiving lesser amount of rainfall, what will happen, they are drought prone because they are already having high variability in the rainfall. The high variability is corresponding to, in terms of the drought prone region, because low rainfall occurred over there. Okay, now the monsoon is basically a unifying bond, right? Why it is a unifying bond? Because we are also characterized, our climate is basically the monsoonal type of climate. Why? Because the effect of the monsoon, okay, the effect of the monsoon in terms of the sowing season, right, in terms of the cultivation season. So what will happen, right, it is basically a, creating a unifying bond across the country. So North India have comparatively higher temperature, okay, specifically in the pre-monsoonal season than other part of the world at the similar latitude, due to, the Himalayan protecting you from the cold Central Asian winds. So during the winter time specifically, right, what will happen, right, the cold Siberian winds, specifically from the cold Central Asian winds, they do not cross because of the Himalaya. So Himalaya act as a protective cover for India, and it basically, saved the India from the chilling nature of these winds. Okay, the peninsular plateau are having the moderating temperature due to the influence of sea. So there is a moderating influence of the sea. Okay, so because the peninsula is basically a protruding landmass, okay, now it is being surrounded by the oceans, okay, on the three sides, on the south side, eastern side, and western side. Okay, because of that, this moderating influence, the temperature remains moderate. Okay, it does not have the, high temperature variations in terms of annual temperature variations or the daily range of temperature. Okay, the monsoon provides a great variations, okay, despiting of such moderating influence. Okay, so there is a great variation in the monsoon. For example, you can say, the rhythmic cycle of the seasons also have the justification for this. Okay, you have the changes in terms of vegetation, animal life, and agricultural activities. Okay, all activities are basically revolve around the monsoon, because the vegetation are basically grown up during the, the rainfalling time, and the agriculture activities also kick started with the rainfall. Okay, animal life also got the renewal in the life. Okay, now next, the life of people, their celebrations of the festival and other activities are also geared up to the monsoon, as all are associated with the monsoon, and which is basically, held a unifying position, or which held basically a unifying bond across the India, because India is basically an agricultural country. Okay, now the water which is being provided by the monsoon will be used for the agricultural activities, for the agriculture, specifically for the irrigation. Hence, the monsoon provides this much needed water for the agricultural operations, right? So the farmers, especially, they waited very eagerly for the monsoon for their sowing season. Okay, now the river valleys, there are river valleys which also, grown to the life because of the monsoonal rainfall. Now these river valley basically carries this water. Okay, this water which was carried specifically in the river valleys, they also act as a unifying bond. Okay, so this unifying bond will basically unify the whole country. Okay, because water is an important factor. So you can see here, right, so this is the graph which basically shows the annual rainfall in India. So changes in the annual rainfall or variations in the annual rainfall. So you can see above 400. So this is basically those regions which are falling in the northeastern portion, okay, and which are falling also in the western side of the Western Ghats, because they are basically, the rain bearing side, okay, or this is also the rain bearing side of, the Arabian Sea branch, and it is basically the rain bearing side of the Bay of Bengal branch. Sorry, it is basically the rain bearing side of the Arabian Sea branch, because it is the Arabian Sea, so it is a rain bearing side, and it is basically the rain bearing side of the Bay of Bengal branch. So they comes in the way of, the Bay of Bengal branch rain bearing winds, and basically, causes the orographic rainfall over there. So highest amount of rainfall occur over there. Next is 200 to 400 centimeters of the rainfall. This is the rainfall which is occurring, in the adjacent region of this high rainfall region. So you can find out this region, okay, where 200 to 400 centimeters of the rainfall occurs. You can find out this adjoining regions also in the northeastern region, okay, where the 200 to 400 centimeters of the rainfall occurs. Then you have 100 to 200 centimeters of the rainfall, okay. It is comparatively, you can find out this region, right, in the northern India, specifically here, okay. Then you can also find out this region over there, okay, in the Coromandel coast also, okay. So these are some of the regions which are falls under this category. Then you have 100 to 60 to 100 centimeters of the rainfall, which is basically lying adjacent to this, okay, where you will have 60 to 100 centimeters of the rainfall. Then the dark dots basically having comparatively low rainfall, which is falling adjacent to that again. This is a hockey stick region, again a rain shadow region, okay. Then very low amount of rainfall, 20 to 40 centimeters, are basically falling in the Rajasthan and adjoining Gujarat and Haryana state, okay. And very scanty rainfall occurs in the western part of Thar desert specifically, and some portion of Gujarat also. All right. And you can also find out the Leh and Ladakh region, which is also very scanty rainfall. Okay. Next, let's start about the natural vegetation. Okay, so what is this natural vegetation, or what is the significance of the natural vegetation? Okay, so what is that natural vegetation? First of all, you must understand. Okay, so the natural vegetation should be understood, okay. So in the form of assemblage of the vegetation, okay. So India is basically one of the 12 mega biodiverse countries. So it is basically comes under the 12 mega biodiversity countries in the world, because of high biodiversity in terms of the flora and the fauna, okay. And the group of the countries which are already included in the group of the mega biodiverse countries are basically having very rich in terms of the species, okay, in terms of the extremely rich biodiverse in terms of their the floral and the faunal composition. So India is a vast country, okay, having around 47,000 plant species, okay, out, and out of which the 15,000 are basically flowering species, and which is basically correspond to the 6% in the world. So in terms of the plant species, in terms of the flowering plant species, the India is basically the richly endowed. In terms of their position, the India basically occupied the 10th position in the world, okay. And it is basically at the 4th position in the Asia, right. In terms of the non-flowering plants such as algae, fungi, and the fern, right, the India is basically having around 90,000 species of the animals also, okay. These animals including your marine animals, fishes, insects. So in terms of the animal species, in terms of the flowering, both basically flowering species, non-flowering species, India is basically richly endowed, okay. Then if you see in terms of your natural vegetation, okay, so natural vegetation means it is a plant community, right. So natural, it's a natural means it is naturally grown, okay. So without anthropogenic effect, or without assistance of any man or anthropogenic. So it is basically that type of plant community which is grown naturally without any human intervention for the longer period of time, okay. So it is basically grown very naturally in the nature, specifically in the forest region, okay. And it is basically left undisturbed by the anthropogenic causes for over a longer period of the time, okay. And sometimes this natural vegetation which is left undisturbed for the longer period of the time or significant for the longer period of the time, it is known as the virgin vegetation. It is known as the virgin vegetation. Okay, it is a part of your natural vegetation. Okay, next, the virgin vegetation again are classified into two types. Okay, so first of all, first is basically the endemic species. Okay, endemic species means they are particularly found in a particular place. So that means these species or these plant species which are originated from a country or originated from a place, that is endemic to the particular country, right, or endemic to the particular place, it is known as the endemic species. It is known as the endemic species. Okay, then you have the exotic species. These exotic species, right, which are basically, either intentionally have been brought or unintentionally by mistake have been brought. So these exotic species are not native to some place. Okay, but they have, originated from the outside country. Okay, and in terms of their spread, they are very quick in terms of their spread, in terms of their coverage, right, and they can, capture the vast area. And somehow what happens is they may also affect the native vegetation also. So the exotic species do not find in a particular area, but they have been brought from outside. The endemic species which are originated from, a particular region, which is, belongs to the region, belongs to the country, which is basically native to that country. Okay, now next is basically the factors which affect the diversity, or factors which affect the diversity. So first of all, there are various factors which affect the diversity. Diversity means you must understand both floral means your plants, and faunal means your animals. Okay, so both flora and the fauna is getting affected because of various factors. Okay, these factors may be relief means you will have the change in the degree of slope. That may be your land, or that may be your, some sort of a soil variations also affect your diversity. Okay, the climatic variations, in the climate you will have the changes in the temperature, the temp changes in the photo period, the number of, the percentage of the sunlight which is available in a particular day. Okay, the precipitation, what is the amount of rainfall that is occurring. Okay, and the ecosystem. Okay, so there are different, factors on which the diversity basically dependent. So first is basically your relief. So relief basically include the land and soil. Okay, so first let's understand the land. Okay, so land is the most important vital assets. Okay, which affect the vegetation directly and indirectly. First of all, you must understand. Okay, now if you can understand that the land can be planar land, the land can be a hilly, or it may be a plateau, right? It may have some slope, or it may have, very steep slope, or it may have the planar area. So right, so if you have seen, right, in the planar areas you will have the different type of vegetation, in the hilly areas you will have different type of vegetation. Okay, so vegetation also, the kind of vegetation also impacted because of the degree of the slope, or because of the nature of the land, whether it is a plain area, hilly area, or plateau area. Okay, generally the fertile lands are basically used for the growing of crops, vegetables, and the fruits. These fertile lands are generally falls on the land surface, which is being, you know uh, you know made by the aggregation of the sediments which have been brought down by the rivers. Okay, so those sediments have been brought down by the rivers and basically make this land fertile. Okay, the undulating, that is wavy, and the rough surface generally develop either into the grasslands or the woodland, because that type of, the land which is generally found in the grassland and the woodland region. Okay, so different type of region or different type of land, right, would have the different property in terms of the sustaining of the life, in terms of the sustaining of the wildlife which can be found specifically in a particular region, in a particular area. Okay, next is basically your soil. So soil is also one of the important parameter for affecting your, your diversity in terms of faunal and the floral composition. So you have seen there are many types of the soil. You have black soil, red soil, alluvial soil, different types of soils are there. Okay, so different type of soil provides the different kind of vegetation. Okay, now for example, you have the alluvial soil or the deltaic soil, okay, which have been made with the help of the sedimentation, which have been, you know, deposited by the rivers specifically, or the deltaic soils which are found nearby river delta. Okay, now what happens is this type of, you know, the deltaic soil which have been found nearby the sea or nearby the delta, they sustain the mangrove vegetation. The mangroves is basically a plant species, right? The Sundarban forest region, specifically in the West Bengal, is basically characteristic mangrove forest, which is, you know, found specifically in the West Bengal region. Okay, and the slopy region, if you have been to the slopes, specifically in the Himalayan region, you will have the conical trees, right? Yeah, the conical type of trees will be there. Okay, now if you have been to the Thar deserts of the Rajasthan, right, the Marusthali has the sandy soil. This sandy soil will not sustain, you know, the type of vegetation that is found basically in the other planar regions. And this sandy soil will have, you know, lesser capacity to sustain this, you know, the floral composition as well as the faunal composition. Okay, now what happens is they basically sustain some of the, you know, the thorny bushes, or, you know, the cactus type of varieties, right, as well as certain, you know, plant adaptations which require the lesser amount of water. Okay, now the animals and the birds also inhabit the locations based on the relief also. So different type of animals and the birds also vary based on that relief characteristics. For example, you have the Siberian cranes and the flamingos, right, which are only found specifically in the wetlands. Okay, for example, in the Rajasthan, the bird sanctuary in the Bharatpur, Rajasthan. Okay, the wetlands of Run of Kutch in the Gujarat region. Okay, and you know, where you will have the different type of migratory birds which can be only found over there. Okay, next is basically your climate. The climate is also one of the important determining factor for your floral and the faunal composition. The climate you can find out in terms of the temperature, photoperiod, and in terms of your precipitation. Okay, so what is climate? What is temperature? Temperature basically the degree of hotness. The degree of hotness, which is basically explained in the form of your temperature. Okay, so temperature affect your, you know, your diversity. The temperature, if that temperature along with the humidity, specifically the percentage of moisture in the air, right, as well as the precipitation, determine the character of vegetation and their extent. Okay, now if you go to, you know, some of the colder places, right, where the climate is much colder. Okay, uh, either you go to the higher reaches, specifically in the higher altitude regions, for example in the Himalayan belt, or even some of the Western Ghats that is above, you know, 900 meters, or, you know, going away from the equator. Okay, the vegetation will change from the tropical to the subtropical, temperate, and alpine. Okay, so you have different type of vegetation. For example, the vegetation which are found in the equatorial region is called equatorial vegetation. The tropical belt will have the tropical vegetation. In the subtropical belt you will have subtropical vegetation. In the temperate and region you will have the temperate vegetation. Okay, now the slopes, or basically the Himalayas, you know, the slopes of the Himalayas and the hills of the plateaus, right, which also affects the type of vegetation and the growth which is found specifically in the different categories. Okay, now if you have seen the temperature characteristics of the vegetation, right, of the vegetation zones, so you will have different vegetation zones. For example, if you see, you know, in the Himalayan belt, so you will have four vegetation zones. The four vegetation zone, the first is called the tropical vegetation zone, the second is called the subtropical vegetation zone. Third is called the temperate vegetation zone. Fourth is called alpine vegetation zone. Okay, so the in the tropical vegetation zone, that average temperature or minimum average temperature is 24 degrees Celsius. In the subtropical, you will have the 17 to 24 degrees Celsius. In the temperate region, you will have somewhat lesser temperature, which is 7 to 17 degrees Celsius. And the alpine region, which is found in the upper reaches of the Himalaya, where the temperature is less than 7 degrees Celsius. Okay, this is the mean temperature specifically in the during the summer month. You can see the mean temperature in the winter months or in the month of January. So in the month of January, the temperature varies, right? In terms of tropical region, there is no frost, right? In the subtropical, the frost is very rare. Okay, in the temperate region, frost comes with the snow, and in the alpine region it is totally snow covered. It is totally snow covered. Okay, and the degree of vegetation or the amount of vegetation is also very specifically in this region also. Okay, next, the photo period. Photo period is basically, the amount of sunlight. Okay, for example, the photo period is basically, for example, if you have been to the polar regions, the sunlight, for example, if you go to the north pole and the south pole, the sun never comes to the, to the light basically in the north pole for the next 6 months. So 6 months you will have complete darkness, and 6 months you will have complete, the sun will be shining. So the six months gap will be there specifically in the polar regions. So the amount and the duration of the sunlight will be varying specifically in the polar region. So this photo period is also related to the amount and the duration of sunlight, which is also significant and which is also explained in the form of photo period. Okay, this photo period having, the variations because of the changes in the latitude. Okay, changes in the altitude and changes of the seasons. For example, if you have the monsoonal time, okay, you will have different photo period. If you have the summer season, you will have different photo period. If you will have winter season, you will have different photo period. Okay, during winter time you will have the shorter days. During winter time you will have the longer nights. During summer time you will have the longer days, and you during summer time you will have the shorter nights. This is what is happening. So photo period also vary. Altitude, if you go to the higher reaches of the Himalayas, obviously the photo period also varies. If you go to the, the latitude, for example, from equator region to the temperate regions, to the subtropical regions, and to the polar regions, right, this photo period will be there. Okay, next, the warmer regions and the climates. Okay, now this is, something also affect your the photo period, which is basically in terms of the duration of the sunlight. The duration of the sunlight vary with the duration of the day, and it is also affecting the availability of the moisture also. If there is a, the high amount of sunlight, if there is a high amount of moisture, obviously the relative humidity in that place will be also high. Okay, specifically in the southern slopes of the Himalayas are covered with a thicker vegetation than the northern slopes, because these slopes are basically, not the rain bearing side, and moreover this slope is also, deficient in terms of your vegetation. So that is the reason the northern slopes are basically having somewhat lesser amount of vegetation. Okay, next, your precipitation. So here, in terms of precipitation, the precipitation, for example, the precipitation may be in the rainfall. Okay, it can be, the sleet, it can be the snowfall. Okay, so precipitation is a term which basically we denote the form of the water vapor. Okay, or form of the, water. So it can be in the form of rainfall, it can be in form of snowfall, it can be in the sleet, or it can be in anything, is any form of water. Okay, now which is basically falling down. So as you know that advanced southwestern monsoon, right, as the southwestern monsoon advance specifically in the month of June to September, because the 1st June is the tentative date for the onset of the monsoon. Okay, when the monsoon burst occur, and the September is the date when monsoon basically started retreating. Okay, so that is the time, around 3 to 3.5 months, that is the advancing period of southwestern monsoon. Then retreating basically occurred after preferably the mid September, so that is starting from October to November. So that monsoon is basically in the retreating monsoon, right, basically covers 100% rainfall. So almost 85% of the rainfall occurs during advanced southwestern monsoon, and 15% of the rainfall occurs during northeastern monsoon. Okay, now these areas of the heavy rainfall basically having the denser vegetation, as you know, right, then other, the areas which is having the lesser vegetation, right, or the lesser rainfall. So obviously the areas which are receiving the higher amount of rainfall, for example the western side of Western Ghats, are having the denser vegetation. Okay, and the areas which are receiving lesser rainfall, for example, uh, you know uh, the drought prone areas or the desert areas, right, interior part of the peninsula, which are having comparatively the, less denser vegetation. Okay, now the southwestern monsoonal rains on the windward side. So that is, if you draw this, the Western Ghats. Okay, this is basically, I'm talking about this windward side. So this is windward side. Okay, windward side, it is the rain bearing winds which is falling on this side, and this side is called basically the leeward side. The leeward side. Leeward side is just opposite to the windward side. Okay. Now in this leeward side, what happens is, right, the whatever the water, the rain bearing winds that is coming out, they have already shed their moisture on this windward side, and this causes the precipitation over there. Okay. And whatever the leftover moisture they have gone, okay, to cross this, the Western Ghats, there is a adiabatic heating over there, and very less amount of moisture is being shed over there. Okay. So it is generally, the receive very less amount of rainfall. Okay. And so this side does not have any, forest, but this side is basically having the lush green forest because of orographic effect of the rainfall. Okay. Let's understand about the ecosystem. Okay. So ecosystem, that in a particular, in a particular climatic conditions, what happens is there are various species of the plants that are found in a particular ecosystem. Okay. Now if you say that the nature, where the type of climate, where type of climatic conditions determine the flora and the fauna, right, or the characteristics of the flora and the fauna. So the type of, or the nature of the climate determine the animal life in that area. Okay. Now the plants and animals obviously dependent for their survival on the climate as well as to the place. Okay. To the physical environment, as well as they are dependent on the other species also. Okay. Specifically they are related to the food chain. Okay. Food web. Now they are interdependent on each other, right, obviously in their physical environment to form an ecosystem. Okay. And the ecosystem is basically a study of the relationship between the living component and the non-living components of a particular environment. Okay. So the ecosystem is basically a biological environment consisting of all living organism, okay, in a particular area. That means it includes the plants, all animals, including the human beings also. And it also consists of the non-living components. That means you have the air, you have the soil, you have water, you have the sunlight. They are all non-living components of your ecosystem. That means the ecosystems we study, the interrelationship between the living components, among living components, and between the living component and the non-living component. The non-living component may be the air, soil, water, and the sunlight. Okay. Next, you have biome. What is biome? Biome, you understand, biome is nothing but a community of plants and animals. Okay. It's an assemblage. Okay. So you can identify it on the basis of the plant which are found over there. Okay. So it is a major community of the plants and animals having the similar life forms which are found under the similar environmental conditions. Okay. Then on the basis of the plants which are found over there, it can also term as a major life zone where the plants and animals are found. Okay. How the humans basically influence the ecosystems, as you know that the anthropogenic impact on the human beings, okay, are very high, right? The anthropogenically, the human being has impacted the ecosystem adversely in terms of the negative changes, for example, in terms of pollution, in terms of soil pollution, right, in terms of water pollution, environmental pollution, noise pollution, right? Lot of other effects are there. Okay. So human being basically influence the ecosystem in the following manner. So obviously the human being basically utilize the vegetation and the wildlife. You have seen that the wildlife can be used, right? Previously the wildlife have the source for the entertainment also. Now the wildlife have been conserved, right? We have used the vegetation for the various purpose, right? For our for our domestic purpose, for the preservation, for the conservation, for getting various services from the ecosystems, right? The greed of the human being, right, which leads to the overutilization of natural resources. So that you have seen that we have exploited or we have degraded our forest land. Okay. We have degraded our lands, farmlands. Okay. That is the greed of the human being. So that is overutilization has led to the depletion of the natural resources. Okay. Then human beings started cutting the trees, killing the animals. Okay. That basically led to the disturbing of your food chain. Okay. Food chain, food web. Okay. And ultimately affecting the ecological imbalance in a particular environment. Okay. Then you know that there is a classification, or there are the classification of the species. You can classify them: extinct, vulnerable, near extinct, right? So threatened, all such species are basically classified based on their relative availability. So there are a lot of species, both the flora and the fauna, right? They have been reached to the verge of extinction, right? And not only certain species have already been extinct, it is all because of the anthropogenic effect. Okay, now let's understand the importance of the forest. What are the importance of the forest? Okay, the importance of the forest can be understood, right? Basically, right, the forests are advantageous to the environment. Okay, obviously the forest provide the oxygen availability. Okay, it cleans the air. Okay, it increases the humidity. Okay, it impact the microenvironment. Lot of other benefits are there. So it influence the climate, reduce the soil erosion, because they act as a tiny check dams. Okay, which basically retard the flow of the water over the surface, and which basically reduces the soil erosion. They bind the soil, they regulate the stream flow, right, to the particular direction. Even they allow the recharge of water, the recharge of the groundwater. Okay, they allow the recharge of groundwater. They provide the raw material to the industries. Okay, you have seen that it is providing the timber, right, and the livelihood for many people, because the agro based industries are there, the forest based industries are there. Okay, these industries, right, cottage industries are there. These industries are providing the livelihood for the people. Okay, they control basically the wind force, obviously, right? If you have the shield of the plants, okay, obviously they will protect, right, the habitation from incoming wind. They also regulate the temperature as well as the rainfall. They provide shelter to the various animals. You have seen that various animals stay in the plants or in the forest. Okay, now next, the change in the nature of vegetation in India. Okay, now what are the changes which have been taken place in the vegetation in India? So first of all, there are the factors like growing demands for the cultivated land. Okay, because of population is increasing. Now this population which is increasing has led to the greater demand for the cultivated land. Obviously the population has led to the development of industries. Okay, mining, urbanization. It is because of the population increase has changed the natural vegetation. Because what happens is the land which was previously denoted or previously was utilized for the forest, now it has been diverted. Now it has been diverted, you know to for various purposes, right? Like for urbanization, for building of industries, right, for mining, right, for converting the land into the cultivated land, farmland, and etc. So obviously which has changed the land use pattern. It has changed the land use pattern of your of your land. The vegetation covers in India large parts is no more natural, because it has been disturbed, it has been replaced by the new vegetation in the real sense, right? So they are in certain areas only, in accessible regions like the Himalayas, where you will have the undisturbed vegetation, the hilly regions of central India, and the Marusthali, where you will have certain natural vegetation you may find. Otherwise in other regions you may not find the undisturbed vegetation. In most of the places it is either modified, replaced, or degraded. Okay, because of the human interferences. So it is because of the human interferences lot of changes have been taken place. Okay, now let's understand the type of vegetation. Okay, so there are different types of vegetation which is available. Okay, these factors are basically, for example, the relief and the climatic factors. Okay, which you can decide type of vegetation which are found. Okay, so based on the major vegetation, or based on the major forest types, you can classify this vegetation into the tropical evergreen forest, which is predominantly found in the tropical region. Okay, 23.5 north and 23.5 degrees south. The tropical deciduous forest, obviously the in evergreen forest you will have the more rainfall. Okay, we will learn about the evergreen forest. Okay, why they are called evergreen. In the deciduous forest you will have the lesser rainfall. Okay, they will basically, fall their leaves during the, dry season. But evergreen forests do not have the particular season to, to fall their leaves. So different, there are, different species which are found over there, right? So density of the plants are also more, the type of species are also more. So different seasons are available, or different time is available for shedding their leaves. So these forest looks always, green. So that is the reason they are called evergreen forest. Then you have the tropical thorn forest and the scrub, which is found in the basically region where the rainfall is very low. The rainfall is very low. For example, you have the desert. Okay, then you have the montane forest, then you have the mangrove forest. Okay, we will learn more about these different type of forest. Okay, next, first is basically the tropical evergreen forest. All you know about the tropical evergreen forest, why they are called tropical evergreen forest? Because first of all, they are found in the tropics. Okay, the tropics means you will have 23° half degree north to 23° half degree south on the both side of equator, both side of equator. Okay, for example, if I draw the earth, you can basically find out this is 0°, this is equator. Okay, this is 23 and a half degree north. Okay, and this is 23 half degree south. So that is called Tropic of Capricorn, and that is called Tropic of Cancer. So I'm talking about this region. This is called tropics. Okay, this region is called tropics. So they are called tropical rainforest. Now, why they're called evergreen? Because they don't have the particular time to shed their tree. They shed their leaves. So the type of the forest which are also different. The tree density is also more. Okay, the canopy cover is very luxurious. Okay, they are having, the stratification of the forest. Okay, they are basically having the stratified canopy. Okay, their height is much more, even 50 meters height. They compete for the sunlight, right? And they always looks evergreen, right? And they do not found in the pure stand. What is the pure stand? Pure stand means you cannot have the single varieties of the trees, right? Single variety of the tree in a larger area. So in a small area, you will have the multiple species of the trees. So that means the commercial exploitation of the tropical evergreen forest is not possible or not feasible. So commercial exploitation, that is for timber industry in the tropical evergreen forest, is not possible, because you cannot exploit the forest, or you cannot exploit the trees, right? Because it will be very uneconomic to cut down those trees, because the tree density is very high, and moreover the trees do not found in the pure stand. Okay, they cover 12% of the total forested area in the country, in our country, and they are found where the annual rainfall is 200 centimeters. So that means where the annual rainfall is 200 centimeters, they are found, right? For example, specific regions you have also learned through the chapter called monsoon, that the western slope of the Western Ghats, because it is occurring the orographic rainfall. Okay, then you have the islands, like you have the Lakshadweep, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, then you have the upper parts of Assam, right? Then the coast of Tamil Nadu and the Orissa, which also receive more than 200 centimeters of rainfall, right? So these are the regions where the tropical evergreen forest have been found. Okay, now let's understand the characteristics of the tropical evergreen forest. The characteristics of the tropical evergreen forest, right? These areas are basically found in the warm and the wet conditions. Okay, so you have high humidity and you have high temperature. Okay, so these areas are warm and wet. So high temperature and high humidity. Okay, these are found throughout the year. Okay, they have abundant vegetation and they can reach up to 60 meters. Okay, and you can find the creepers, bushes also over there. Okay, these vegetation occurred in the multi layered structure. That means you have the stratified canopy. Okay, which is in the layered arrangement. For example, you have the biggest tree, then you have the small tree, then you have another small tree, and you have another small tree. So like that you will have, the stratified canopy. Okay, this maximum height to, from the from the bottom to the top is more than 60 meters. That is the highest, the height of the tree. So stratified canopy will be there. They appear green throughout the year as the trees shed their leaves at the different times, because the number of species, right? The number of species are more. So each species are having different time period to shed their tree, should shed their leaves. Okay, and that is the reason they appear always green. They appear always green because there is no fixed time period for shedding their leaves. Okay, so they always appear greener. They always appear greener. All right. Next, let's understand what are the characteristic flora and the fauna which are found specifically in the tropical evergreen forest. Okay, so you will found basically important commercial trees, for example ebony, mahogany, cinchona, rubber, and rosewood. Okay, these are the characteristic commercial tree which are found in the tropical evergreen forest. The animals which are found are rhinoceros, elephants, monkey, lemur, deer, many bird species, bats, sloth, scorpions, and the snails are important characteristic animal which are found over there. Okay, so you can see here in the tropical evergreen forest, what I was explaining you, you have the word, the stratified, you have the stratified canopy. Okay, which is basically, you can see here the maximum height, that is, this one. Then you have the, the second layer which may be up to 40 meter. Then you have the third layer which may be 20 meters. Okay, then you have, other shrub layers which may be, 1.5 meters. Okay, so like that you have the stratified canopy of the trees, shrubs, right? The young trees which may be found in the tropical evergreen forest, and they are very dense. They are very dense because they're, because of lot of rainfall, and the abundant, rainfall occurs, and the type of climate is also soothing for, the growth of that type of tree. Okay, next you have the tropical deciduous forest. What is tropical deciduous forest? See, tropical deciduous, again you will say 23° half north to 23° half south, both side of the equator. Deciduous means they can shed their leaves, okay, during, a, dry season. That means these trees are found in the pure stand, right? So that means the type of the forest, or the number of type of the trees which are found in the deciduous forest are not that much high. Okay, so they cover, almost 64% of the total forested area of our country, and they are most abundant varieties of the forest which are available in the tropical deciduous forest. Okay, now these forests are also called monsoonal forest because such type of forest regime can be found in the monsoonal land, because India is also monsoonal country where the monsoon occur. Okay, you have seen that the southwest monsoon is the characteristic, right, monsoonal type of climate, and which spread over in the region where the rainfall is 70 centimeters to 200 centimeters. Okay, so the rainfall is the limitation, and these type of trees basically shed their leaves for about 6 to 8 weeks in the dry summer, right? Why they shed the leaves, right? To conserve the moisture. To conserve the moisture, they shed their leaves for specifically in the dry season. Okay, now let's understand types of the tropical dry deciduous forest. Okay, so on the basis of availability of the water, these forests are further divided into the moist and the dry deciduous forest. Okay, so let's understand first the moist deciduous forest. What is the moist deciduous forest? Okay, the moist deciduous forest basically grown in the region where comparatively higher amount of rainfall is there. So the rainfall is 100 to 200 centimeters. In those areas they are grown. Okay, they cover 34% of the country's forest area, okay, out of 100%. And these areas where 100 to 200 centimeters of the rainfall are there, these areas are basically located in the eastern part of the country, specifically the northeastern states, the western Orissa, the Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, foothills of Himalayas, and the leeward side of Western Ghats. Okay, and some of the species, because these trees are basically found in the pure stand, Okay, so these species are some of the teak species, which may be dominant species, which are found in the moist deciduous. Okay, then you have the bamboo, you have the sal, you have the shisham, you have the sandalwood, you have the khair, kusum, arjun, mulberry. These are the some of the tropical moist deciduous type of forest which are found basically in certain regions where the the rainfall is 100 to 200 centimeters. Okay, let's understand about the dry deciduous. The dry deciduous type of forest is found basically in those regions where the rainfall is between 70 to 100 centimeters. Okay, so it is comparatively found in the lesser rainfall region. Okay, so it is classified the dry deciduous. They cover 30% of the country's forested area. Okay, total deciduous cover 64 percentage out of the moist cover around 34 percentage, and the dry cover basically 30 percentage. So that is out of total deciduous forest, it is like that. Okay, they are found in the rainier parts of peninsular plateau and the plains of Uttar Pradesh and the Bihar. Okay, the most important characteristic tree which are found in this region is basically, you can say, the teak, sal, people, and the neem. These are the tree which are growing in this region, and many part of these areas have been cleared for the agricultural activities and have been converted into agricultural land. Okay, now the important animals which are found in these regions are basically the lions, tigers, elephants, pigs, deer, and various varieties of the birds, lizards, tortoise, snakes are found in the dry deciduous forest. All right, so that's all for the today. Okay, so we'll meet again tomorrow. So thank you very much for attending this session. We'll cover up our next class, or our next, the portion of the NCRT in the next class. Thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you.